An elder man inherited a junkyard that everyone mocked, but buried beneath decades of rust and forgotten metal, he discovered a pink Bugatti worth millions that changed his life forever. What started as the cruelest joke became the greatest comeback story anyone had ever witnessed. Before we dive in, what time are you listening? Where are you from? Drop a comment below and tell me. And please like and subscribe for more videos like this. Harold stood at the rusted gates of the junkyard, holding a crumpled envelope in his trembling hands. 73 years old, drowning in debt, and this was his inheritance. His distant uncle, a man he had met only twice in his entire life, had left him 20 acres of garbage. The lawyer had barely hidden his smirk when handing over the keys. Harold's children had laughed on the phone. His neighbors whispered behind his back. Even the bank manager had shaken his head in pity when Harold mentioned his plan to sell the property. But standing there, watching the morning sun cast long shadows across mountains of twisted metal and shattered dreams, Harold felt something unexpected. Not hope exactly, but curiosity. What kind of man spends 60 years collecting other people's trash? The first week was brutal. Harold woke at dawn and worked until his hands bled. The junkyard was bigger than he imagined, deeper than satellite images suggested. Crushed cars stacked like metallic sandwiches, appliances from decades past, machinery he could not even name. Every step revealed another layer of chaos. He found refrigerators from the 1950s, tractors missing wheels, a carousel horse with faded paint. The smell of oil and rust became his constant companion. His daughter called on Tuesday, her voice tight with concern. She wanted him to come live with her family, to give up this foolish dream. Harold thanked her and hung up. He could not explain what kept him digging. Perhaps it was stubbornness. Perhaps it was the alternative, sitting in a retirement home, watching his remaining years tick away like a broken clock. By the second week, Harold had cleared maybe 1/10 of the property. His back screamed every morning. His savings account dropped to double digits. He ate canned soup and stale bread, too tired to cook real meals. The bank had started sending letters, red envelopes that Harold stopped opening. Debt collectors called at dinner time. He owed $47,000, accumulated from medical bills, his late wife's funeral, and a failed business venture his son-in-law had convinced him to invest in. At 73, bankruptcy seemed inevitable, but something kept him moving forward, some whisper in his bones that said, "Keep digging." The third week brought rain. Thick, heavy drops that turned the junkyard into a mud pit. Harold slipped twice, nearly breaking his hip on a pile of iron pipes. But the rain also revealed something. Water pooled in strange patterns, flowing around a massive shape covered by a tarpaulin so old it had fossilized into the landscape. Harold had walked past this corner 100 times, dismissing it as just another pile. But now, watching water cascade around its edges, he saw the outline. Long, low, curved. A vehicle. Definitely a vehicle. His heart began to pound in a rhythm he had almost forgotten. He approached slowly, feet squelching in mud. The tarp resisted at first, decades of weather having melded it to whatever lay beneath. Harold grabbed a corner and pulled. It tore like paper, releasing a smell of dust and time. He pulled harder, ripping away layers, and then he stopped breathing. Pink. Brilliant, impossible pink. Not the faded hue of something left to rot, but vibrant, almost glowing in the grey rain. Harold tore away more tarp, his hands shaking so badly he could barely grip. The curves of the body emerged like a sculpture. Being born, low to the ground, aggressive, beautiful. He stumbled backward, landing in mud, staring. A Bugatti, an actual Bugatti. He recognized it from magazines, from documentaries about the world's most expensive automobiles. But this was not just any Bugatti. This was pink, custom, possibly one of a kind. Harold did not sleep that night. He sat in his uncle's old office, a shipping container converted into living space, and researched on his ancient laptop. Pink Bugattis were rare, extraordinarily rare. Custom orders from buyers, with unlimited money and specific tastes. He found articles about a Saudi businessman who had commissioned 3 pink Bugattis in the early 2000s. One had been sold at auction, one was in a private museum. The third had vanished, reportedly stolen, and never recovered. Harold's hands shook as he scrolled through photographs. The curves matched. The specific shade of pink matched. Could it be? Could his uncle have somehow acquired a stolen multi-million-dollar vehicle and hidden it in plain sight for decades? The next morning, Harold called a specialist, not a local mechanic, but an automotive historian he found through an obscure forum. The man's name was Richard, and his voice carried the careful skepticism of someone who had been fooled before. But when Harold sent photographs, the line went silent for a long moment. Richard called back within an hour. He was booking a flight. He would arrive tomorrow. Harold should not touch the vehicle, should not tell anyone else, should absolutely not call the police yet. There were procedures, authentication processes, legal considerations. Harold agreed to everything, his mind spinning. That night he could not eat. He walked circles around the Bugatti, now partially uncovered, gleaming even in darkness. Richard arrived with equipment Harold did not understand. Cameras that saw things human eyes could not. Devices that analyzed paint composition. He spent 6 hours examining every inch of the vehicle, taking notes in a leather journal, making phone calls in hushed tones. Finally, as the sun began to set, he turned to Harold with an expression that was half shock, half reverence. This was it. The third missing Bugatti. VIN numbers matched. Custom modifications matched. Paint analysis dated it to the correct period. But there was more. Richard pulled up articles on his tablet. The Saudi businessman who had commissioned the vehicle had died years ago. His estate had been liquidated. The insurance company had paid out the claim for the stolen Bugatti decades earlier, which meant, legally, the vehicle now belonged to whoever could prove legitimate ownership. And Harold's uncle had a bill of sale, yellowed and fragile, tucked inside the glove compartment. Dated 1998, purchased from a liquidation auction for $1,500, listed as scrap metal and parts unknown. Harold felt his knees buckle. Richard caught his arm, guided him to sit on an overturned bucket. The automotive historian was grinning now, pulling out his phone, making calls. Auction houses, collectors, insurance adjusters. The words blurred together, but numbers cut through. The fog. Conservative estimate, Richard said, 4 million. Possibly 6 if the right buyer emerged. Possibly more if it went to auction and sparked a bidding war. Harold pressed his hand to his chest, feeling his heart hammer against his ribs. $4 million, $6 million, numbers so large they felt fictional, but then reality crashed. Back. Harold asked the question that had been growing in his mind. If the vehicle was stolen, if insurance had paid out, did that not make this complicated? Richard shook his head. The insurance company had been dissolved in a merger 20 years ago. The original owner was dead. The estate settled. No one had legal claim except Harold, who possessed both the vehicle and a legitimate bill of sale from a recognized auction house. It was clean. Incredibly, impossibly clean. His uncle, whether through luck or cunning, had purchased a stolen Bugatti legally at scrap prices and hidden it for reasons Harold would never know. The next month moved like a fever dream. Richard connected Harold with auction specialists. Legal teams verified every document. Appraisers flew in from 3 continents. News leaked, as news always does. Reporters appeared at the junkyard gates. Harold's daughter called, crying, apologizing for doubting him. His son-in-law stammered through an awkward conversation. Neighbors who had mocked him now waved enthusiastically. The bank manager personally visited to discuss investment opportunities. Harold nodded through it all, feeling disconnected, as if watching his life happen to someone else. The auction was scheduled for a Thursday evening, private, exclusive, only pre-approved bidders. Harold wore his only suit, 20 years old, but freshly cleaned. He sat in a room with people who wore watches worth more than houses. The Bugatti sat under spotlights, pink paint gleaming like a jewel. Bidding started at $3 million. Within minutes it hit 5. Harold stopped breathing somewhere around 7. The final hammer fell at $8.4 million. Sold. To a collector in Singapore who appeared via video call, his face barely visible on the screen. Harold signed papers in a daze. Richard clapped him on the shoulder. The auction house representative explained that after fees and taxes, Harold would net approximately $6.8 million. The money hit his account on a Tuesday morning. Harold sat in the shipping container office, staring at his laptop screen, at numbers that still felt impossible. He paid off his debts first. $47,000 transferred with a single click. He paid off his daughter's mortgage, set up trust funds for his grandchildren, donated to the hospital that had cared for his wife. Then he did something unexpected. He kept the junkyard. Not all of it, but 5 acres. He hired a crew to clear the dangerous debris, to organize what remained. He converted part of it into a community workshop, a place where people could learn to fix things, to build things, to reclaim value from what others had discarded. He funded scholarships for vocational training. He established a program that helped elderly people facing bankruptcy, offering legal assistance and financial counseling. People asked why he did not just retire, move to a beach somewhere, live in luxury. Harold would smile and shrug. He had spent 3 weeks digging through trash, had felt the shame of being mocked, had tasted the bitterness of debt. He knew what it meant to be dismissed, to be counted out, to be told your best years were behind. The Bugatti had given him money, yes, but the junkyard had given him something more valuable. It had given him purpose when the world said he had none left. It had proven that value could hide in the most unexpected places. That persistence mattered, that giving up was always premature. On the anniversary of finding the Bugatti, Harold held a small ceremony at the workshop. His grandchildren ran between workbenches. His daughter hugged him tight. Former debt collectors who had become friends brought food. Someone asked if he ever regretted not keeping the car. Harold laughed. He had driven it once, a short loop around the junkyard before it was transported to auction. It had felt wonderful and terrifying, all that power humming beneath him. But it had also felt wrong, like wearing someone else's skin. The car belonged in a collection, preserved and admired, but the junkyard belonged to him, belonged to everyone who needed a second chance. That felt right. That felt like home. Harold still wakes at dawn. He still works with his hands, though now he teaches others rather than digging alone. He still eats simple meals, though he could afford anything. The shipping container remains his office, though he owns a comfortable house. Nearby, people call him lucky. He does not argue. But late at night, when the junkyard is quiet and stars fill the sky, Harold knows it was not just luck. It was showing up. It was refusing to quit when quitting made sense. It was believing that beneath the rust and ruin, something beautiful might still exist. The junkyard that everyone laughed at became proof that value is not always visible. That age is not the same as obsolescence. That the things we dismiss might hold the answers we need. Harold inherited trash and found treasure, but more importantly, he found himself again, found purpose, found proof that it is never too late to uncover something extraordinary. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe for more videos like this.